Welcome back to the KENOBI podcast. I am your host. I'm Chris KENOBI, and we are back. And we are still in Black History Month. And so, during this month, I'm going to bring up all of these difficult subjects and topics to provoke you, to get you to maybe see my life and see through my eyes, and see and maybe take the foot out of your shoe and put it in mine, just for a little bit, just for 10 or 15 minutes. I'm going to ask you to like and subscribe. I'm going to say that since my last post, I have not heard from some of my white brothers and sisters that love me, and I know they love me, and they've told me they love me. I haven't heard from you. I hope that means that you're thinking about this. I hope that doesn't mean that you're never going to talk to me anymore, because I kind of miss you. And I'm kind of sorry if I said anything to upset you, but I'm not sorry for what I said, because what I said was true. But I hope to hear from you. And I hope whoever's listening to this today will like and subscribe. I didn't get any likes, I didn't get any subscriptions. So I guess somehow you didn't like it and you didn't subscribe. That being said, it's still our podcast, and we're still going to keep going with these difficult topics. And maybe, you know what? Maybe it's all for posterity's sake. Maybe it's all for one day somebody's going to look at this and say, you know what? KENOBI had it right. Maybe somewhere down the road, 10, 20 years from now, when we're really living in a dystopian era, where it's really illegal and you're scared to come out of your door like now, when it's really illegal to say anything negative about a person, or you might get arrested, or you might get sued, or you might lose everything like it is now. When it's really worse than what it is now, maybe somebody will come across this and say, you know what? KENOBI saw it coming. I hope not. I hope we can head it off. But this is where we're headed. Now, I want to talk to you about my life a little bit today. I want you to see where I'm coming from, because I want you to understand I am not talking a black narrative. I am not talking what the left talking points. I am not talking this rhetoric that you may think that I'm talking about, that you've heard say when a black person bring up black issues. They're really not black issues. They're really American issues. I'm an American. You're an American. But I'm not talking about those things. I'm talking to you from my personal life experiences. So when I tell you something, understand, I'm telling you that I've experienced it. Now, my white friends, I know you're listening, and maybe you should feel a little bit sad for me that the things that I've experienced you didn't know about. Or maybe you should feel sad that I had to even experience those things. I believe you do, because I believe you love me, and I believe you're better than that. Now let's go on. I grew up in the inner city. I grew up in a time when the civil rights movement was a serious business issue. I grew up in a time where black people were really treated like we were treated like the plague. We were treated like we had a disease. We were cordoned off in communities, ghettos, that's what they called them. Places where only the blacks lived. They called them ghettos. That's what people still call them today. Ghettos. That's just decapitated areas of housing, decapitated areas of economics. There's no economics there. There's no businesses there. There's no decent place to live. The schools were not that great. Ghettos. We lived in ghettos. We had the worst of everything in ghettos. You had the worst of food deliveries. You had the worst of housing. You had the worst of landlords. You couldn't own a house back then. It was a rare thing. Guess Who's Coming to Dinner was a movie, but it was a rare thing for a black person to own a home back in those days. Back in my days, it was really a serious issue to be poor. I know what it's like to be poor. I know what it's like to be hungry. I know what it's like to be hungry. And I get on my kids when they say they're hungry, because they have no idea what hunger's like. But I know what it's like, and I can describe to you what that feeling's like when you really have nothing in your belly and you're starving. I know what that feeling's like. I know what that feeling's like not to have any clothes to wear. I know what that feeling's like to have to go to get hand-me-downs, what we called. I know what it's like to wear shoes until you're walking on concrete. I know what it's like to see your mother cleaning the house of white people and being treated like she's less than because she was black. I know what it's like to see her come home beaten and demarginalized just so she could put food on the table for us. I know what it's like to see police brutality. I know what it's like to experience police brutality. I know what it's like to see the very people that's supposed to be protecting us in those ghettos were actually some of the very people that were beating us up, saying that we resisted arrest and throwing us in prison. I know what that's like. I know what it's like for some black people to have been shot just because they were in the wrong place at the wrong time by people that were in authority. I know what that's like. I know what it's like when your parents tell you that you need to be home before it's dark. Because if you're not home before it's dark, you may not get home. Because, see, people that went around in black ghettos and they found kids when they were walking home late at night, those kids may not come home. I know what it's like to have your food inspected and your food inspected at Halloween when you did knock on those doors because some kids, black kids, did chew into razors in their apples or in their fruits. I know what that's like, of which I speak. I know what it's like when teachers don't want to teach because they're teaching in a ghetto and they tell your parents, well, he needs a trade job because he'll never be anybody. I know of which I speak. I know which I speak. To know what it's like to see black people jailed and jailed and jailed. I know what that's like to have them come out of jail and not be able to get a job because they've been in jail. And I find it very hypocritical and ironic right now that some of the very things that the jails are full of people, predominantly black people for, society has now somehow made its mission to use that as an economic source of income. Somehow all the black people that are in jail for selling marijuana, they're still in jail, but we have CBD all over the place and it's perfectly legal. So even that, you can see this injustice here. You could see it. This is what I speak. This is what I know what it's about. I know what it's like to be a recipient of help from the government. And see, growing up, things were so unfair for black people. It was unfair. We were in ghettos. We didn't have good educations. We didn't have good schooling. Everybody had to work just to put food on the table. So you couldn't make school a plan. You couldn't really think about your future because your future was every day. Your future was think about how am I going to survive today? That was our future. And as a family, we had to work together for the collective future, for us to be able to stay together. But then things changed. You had the civil rights movement, and you had white people that came alongside of black people. You had white people that not only marched with black people, you had white people that opened their doors to black people. I'm a recipient of that. I'm a recipient of many white doors that were open to me. But they were open to me because I was black. That's why the doors were open. I am blessed to have those white doors open. Part of my heritage is those white doors that were open to me. Doors were open to me to be part of something that's called the Upward Bound program. It was a program that took inner city kids in ghettos that were somehow on a better level of reading than the normal ghettoan child. And they put that a child in a different program to somehow graft them into college life so they wouldn't be completely overwhelmed and they wouldn't fail in college. I was a recipient of that. That's a Civil Rights Act, the Upward Bound program. If it wasn't for the Upward Bound program, I wouldn't have went to college. I wouldn't have been able to be considered middle class. I wouldn't have been able to do any of the things I've done in my life had it not been for that program. Okay, so I know what it's like. And let me tell you about these programs that were given to black people. See, when we talk about the programs that were given to black people, we talk as if these programs made black people equal to white people. No, 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 no. Jimmy was still white, and Jimmy was still the majority, and Jimmy was still over me with the power over my life, over my future, over where I lived in the ghetto, how I ate, what was delivered in the ghetto, and what assistance I got in the ghetto. Jimmy was still over me. These advantages that people talk about, the affirmative action and things like that, where they say DEI, that is some parts of it attributed to black education and opening doors for black people to go to schools, to colleges and schools that they normally wouldn't be able to go to because they simply don't have the money. People in ghettos didn't have money. We didn't think about college. We never thought about going to college because our only thing was thinking about the now, how we were going to be alive the next day. Okay? So I'm trying to give you this perspective. And so I look at these things that were given and they allowed us to get in the door. We still probably had to hold the door for Jimmy because Jimmy was still the majority. And so even if I was in school with Jimmy and Jimmy was in my classroom, I still had to be smarter than Jimmy. I had to work harder than Jimmy. I had to come early to class and Jimmy came late. I had to be the last one out of the class. I had to pester the teacher and study and go to the library so much more than Jimmy because if I didn't, it wouldn't be because I just couldn't learn like Jimmy, because I'm black. It's because I'm a stupid nigger. That's what would be called to me. But when Jimmy failed the class, it's just because it's Jimmy. So these advantages, and I don't use that N word, but I have to use it in this context because I want you to understand, by the way. I found it repulsive that it's used in music and everything else. It's not necessary. But for this exercise, I must use it so you understand that I was still not on the same plane as Jimmy. It just gave me a step up. And when I got the opportunity of having that step up, I had to work harder than Jimmy. I had to work twice as hard. And somehow, if I got out of college and I got a job, when I got to that job, 9 out of 10 times, yes, some people gave me a job sometimes, and I remember having to sign affirmative action information. They got a tax break for it, yes. But that wasn't the end of it. You know why? Because I still wasn't equal to Jimmy. I may have had the same skill set, but I had to work twice as hard as Jimmy. I had to come to work earlier than Jimmy, leave later than Jimmy, be more helpful with everybody around the office, and do things that Jimmy would never want to do because it was beneath Jimmy. Just to stay in that door. Just so now that my kids may have 2 steps up. But I remind them all the time that there's always a Jimmy. Now, what I find very disturbing to me is that this administration, the Trump administration, is trying to take those things away that just gave me a step up to hurt black people, to hurt black people from just having a step up, not from even being equal. They are trying to take things away. They're taking the ability for black people to go to colleges they otherwise wouldn't be afford. They're making it harder for people with student loans. That affect blacks and whites. But believe you me, it's affecting black people a lot more than it's affecting white people with student loans. Okay? And so they're making that difficult. They're dismantling the Board of Education. So even if you are in a ghetto, now it's worse for you to go to school there because you know why? Because now the education system is so disadvantaged to me. And this administration is taking these things away. They're taking it away. They're taking it away because somehow, again, like I said before, they're saying that somehow all of these things put white people at a disadvantage. As if these things made me higher than Jimmy. It did not. Jimmy was still higher than me. He's still higher than me right now. What it did was it made Jimmy have to look at me. And it made Jimmy have to say to himself, you know what? KENOBI isn't stupid. Maybe Jimmy looked at me now like a person. Maybe Jimmy and I become friends now. We can share things. Yeah, that's what happened. But see, society as a whole don't want you and me, Jimmy and me, to get along. And so they pour you and feed you rhetoric that all of these things somehow were a detriment to white people when it was not. Okay? And you know what? It could never be a detriment to you. It could never be a detriment to you because I'm still beneath you. I don't know if that, again, I'm not, my white friends are not talking to me. I don't know if that makes you feel better, or I don't know if you're saying that's not true, but it is true. I wish you could be black for a month. Even now, and see, it's still different. It is still different. And what I see happening in our country is in certain areas, they're trying to remove. Oh, let me go back for a second about drugs, because that's a very important point I want to bring up. That real shows you still the disparity between black people and how white people are treated. Now, when I was growing up, I saw drug abuse. I saw people shoot drugs. Heroin was the drug of choice back in the day. And when I was growing up in the black community, it was heroin. It was cheap. It was a hit. And junkies became junkies. And junkies were on the street doing anything to get a hit. And then after that, it was crack. Okay? These were black drugs. These were things that strung out black communities. But these things were delivered to the black community to be sold by blacks to their own blacks. But they were delivered to blacks by white people. We didn't run any drug. We weren't drug kingpins. Where did we get drugs from? We didn't have the ability to get on planes and ship drugs in and out of the country. But it wasn't a big problem back then when black people were being strung out and ODing, and black people were getting AIDS. AIDS also was another issue, let me say. Before, when it was AIDS, they called it the monkey virus. They tried to blame it. It was a black thing. AIDS became a thing when it started to affect Jimmies that were rich and powerful and famous. That's what happened. At first, it's like the thing that was said in The Godfather when it comes to drugs. If you remember in the movie The Godfather, it goes to show me right now that Francis Ford Coppola didn't even care. And as much as I watched The Godfather, okay, and as much as white people watch The Godfather, they don't find it offensive that in that movie with Don Corleone, when he's saying, when he comes to Barzini and he says, listen, how did we get here? Okay. And he's talking to Talia. Okay. And Talia is bringing about their drugs. They wanted drugs. Corleone didn't want drugs in the communities. But Talia said, you know what? I only give drugs to the darkies, to the blacks, because he said they're animals anyway, so let them lose their souls. And that's in The Godfather 1. But just think how it was back in those days for Francis Ford Coppola to put that in a movie, and if he tried to do it today, what would happen? You see, back then he didn't care. We were animals. That's how we were treated. It was openly discussed. It was openly said. They're animals anyway, so let them lose their souls. How did that make me feel? But I go to say that now, that the drug of choice then was heroin and crack, right? The drug of choice right now is cocaine. That's really more of a middle class thing that people mess around with. Okay? But what's really affecting white people today is fentanyl. Fentanyl is really what's affecting white Americans. More, do the research before you attack me. More than black Americans, white Americans are being destroyed by fentanyl. And it's no wonder to me that our president has went on a war against fentanyl. He said he's blowing up countries and he's blowing up boats because they're bringing fentanyl in our country. Not true, but he hates fentanyl because people from TV shows lost children, I'm sorry, and got on his campaign because they blamed Biden for the fentanyl coming into the country. Okay? Now that's what happened. But he doesn't care about cocaine. You know why he doesn't care about cocaine? Because it affects black people and middle class black and white people. He doesn't care about that. But the white race is being attacked by fentanyl. How do I know this? Because he pardoned a man that that brought into this country 400 tons of cocaine. He pardoned that man. Now, why are you going to have a war on drugs and you're going to pardon a man that brought in 400 tons and has the ability to go and do it again of bringing cocaine? He's a cocaine dealer into our country. Because you don't care who the cocaine affects, but you care who the fentanyl affects. That's true. That's me being honest with you. That's me being honest with you. Now, back to what I was saying. We talk about we're taking these things away, and he's trying to take away my history. You see, one thing about the black people, he's trying to take away slavery. He's trying to take away, and his administration said, people are just, I never forget, she said, people they're tired of hearing about slavery. Every time they go into a museum, they're tired of seeing stuff about slavery. If you're white, do you find that offensive? Do you find it uncomfortable if you go into a museum and you see things about what happened to the black people, the black experience of slavery? Does that make white people uncomfortable? I'm asking. Leave me a comment, please. If it makes you uncomfortable, it should, because it is abhorrent. It is horrible what happened to a race of people at the hands of white people. Now, here's the crazy thing, and I'll give you my conjecture here. What I don't see happening is while this administration is making every move and using every executive order he can to strip the black people of their history, because it wasn't just a history about slavery, it's also a history about the black resilience. It's about the black resilience, the black effort to overcome those obstacles, the black effort to overcome obstacles of living in ghettos and some people breaking out and living in middle class areas. It's taking away that history that gives us sometimes the extra push that says we can make it. It's been worse than this. We can keep pushing. He's taking away the history of slavery. Why? Because if you take away the history of slavery, then white people will not feel somehow uncomfortable. But it's not really uncomfortable that you're feeling, I submit to you, I think you're feeling somewhat responsible and you don't want to have blood on your hands. You don't want to be feeling as if you're responsible. I'm sorry. If you're white, you, not you personally, but maybe some of your ancestors are responsible for black people being enslaved and treated like chattel. Okay? So as a race, you bear witness to that. And it makes you uncomfortable. Okay, fine. But that's how we overcome it. Maybe Jimmy, see, the thing that the powers that be don't want is for Jimmy and I to get along. They want you not to talk to me now. They want you to cut me off and call me the racist and call me the prejudiced person now. They want you to do that so you won't talk to me, so we won't be able to communicate, so we won't be able to share ideas and share our experience, and we can reason together. And maybe I could bring this shroud off of you of the deception that's been coming and being poured into your heart and mind by this racist man. And you see, so then I bring up the other word, the R word, the word that no Democrat and no Republican wants to talk about. The dirty, nasty word. It's the worst curse word in the history of curse words. You know what it's called? It's called reparations. Reparations, to make amends for a wrong one is done. To repair something that someone broke. Reparations. The act of repairing. See, black people can't talk about that word. Because, you see, it's already been said to us, we should be glad that we were slaves. Because some slave masters treated the blacks okay. We don't deserving of reparations. We put you in ghettos. We put you in places where you have a place to live. We housed you. We gave you welfare. We gave you health care. We didn't give you no reparations. And that's how most white people feel about it, right? Because you look at that like somehow if I got some reparations, whatever form that may be, and somehow that's going to make me better than you, believe you me, there's nothing in this world that anyone could ever give a black person that would make a black person equal to a white person. Because you're the majority and you're the one with the power over me. Now, you're going to say, well, what about the black people that made it? What about the black billionaires? What about the black sports figures? I don't consider those people black anymore. You know why? Because they paid a price to hang out with Jimmy. And the price that they paid to hang out with Jimmy and to be in Jimmy's sphere and to be in Jimmy's world is that they forgot their history. Before the Trump administration ever blotted it out and tried to blot it out, the black people, in my opinion, that have been in that sphere of influence already destroyed our history. They left us behind. I dare say, I'm sorry, but Michael Jordan don't care about black people. Michael Jordan only cared about black people buying his sneakers. And kids forcing their parents to work so hard to get them those sneakers because they idolized Michael Jordan as someone that made it, someone they could look up to. But Michael Jordan don't care about black people, in my opinion. LeBron James, he doesn't care about black people. Jay-Z don't care. All he care about is black people is buying his records and buying his clothes and drinking his liquor. Why you give a black person an addiction? You want us to get drunk? We're already dealing with drugs and dealing with all these other societal issues, but you're going to go and get a liquor brand to make it worse. You're going to get a clothes brand that don't give discounts to black people. You make them expensive so that we still have to put more of a burden on us economically just to look like Jimmy. No, they don't care about black people. The price they paid to get into the circle was to forget about black people. And I'll give you this, for those that say I'm dead wrong. When we see the injustices that this administration is doing against black people, I don't hear LeBron James. I don't hear a statement from LeBron James. I don't hear a statement from Jay-Z. I don't hear a statement from Michael Jordan. I don't hear a statement from a lot of these rich sports figures. The ones that are making so much money, they'll never be in the ghetto again. I don't hear anything from them because they're not saying anything. Because the price they paid to be out of the ghetto was to forget about who they left in the ghetto. And that's our opinion, and that's our podcast, and this is my point of view. And that's how I feel about it. So you can't use those people. I discount those people. They're not part of the black experience anymore. They're not part of the black experience. So you're trying to take away something from me as if that's how somehow reparations will make me somehow equal or better. I'll never get reparations, so you don't have to worry about that. No Democrat, no Republican, and Lyndon B. Johnson did things for black people, and John F. Kennedy did things, but that was a subject they were never going to touch. Could you imagine them touching reparations? They were never going to touch reparations, and that's a fact. But here's the crazy thing, and I'm going to give you another comparison. When we talk about the resilience of a people, when we talk about a people overcoming odds, like the black community, the only other race of people, sect of people that I see that resilience in is the Jewish community. Now, before I say anything, there's no way you can call me anti-Semitic. There's no way you can force me as anti-Semitic because I've got Jewish parents. I have Jewish parents. One of these people that opened this door for me, a little black boy from the inner city, opened the door for me to go live with them, was a white Jewish family. And I was raised by them too. See, I'm part of two worlds. So I know of which I speak. I know how Jimmy lives, and I know how I lived. And I know how Jimmy thinks, and I know how I experience what Jimmy thinks. Okay? So you can't accuse me of that. But what I see in the Jewish community and the Jewish people is such resilience, such unity, such togetherness. It's remarkable. It's remarkable of what they overcame. You see, they had a tyrant that wanted to completely wipe them out. And only by sheer resilience and the grace of God, they overcame it. Overcame it to finally get a nation and get their nation back. I applaud Israel. I applaud your Jewish history. And I know that history because it was taught to me by Jewish people. And so I don't get upset when I go into a museum and I see things about what the Jews went through. When I read things about the diary of Anne Frank and things like that, I say, wow, that's horrible. What a people, though. The resilience, what I can learn from that resilience. It doesn't make me uncomfortable. You see, I think that black people and Jewish people have so much in common that we should get along, but the powers that be, the powerful Jimmies, don't want us to get along. And that's the truth, too. That's the truth, too. So, and you know what? I know a lot of Jewish people. I know that sounds like reverse racism, right? I worked for Charlie Kushner. Charlie Kushner treated me fair. He's a good man. I remember a lot of, and I know a lot. I got a lot of stories in the tank about Charles Kushner and Jared Kushner. So I speak from which I know. You could never attack KENOBI from saying you're making this stuff up. I'm not making up. I lived what I'm telling you. So what I'm saying is, I can go into a Jewish museum and nobody's going to say take that down. Nobody's going to say rip that down. Nobody's going to say you dare take down their history. If you dare even thought about taking down a plaque or something that was honoring someone that went through something like that in the Holocaust, there would be such a Jewish outcry and an American outcry that that person would be totally destroyed. Their business would be destroyed. The presidents and the politicians would rise up and say, we don't tolerate that behavior in this country. But I don't hear that when the president is shutting down the Smithsonian or shutting down removing plaques about slavery and elevating people in the Confederate and people that were traitors and people that lynched us and people that did things to us. I don't see there's this outcry, not even from my Jewish brothers. What is the difference? How can one history be so resilient and tenacious, and the other one has to be blotted out from existence? The only thing is, one is black and one is right. And there you go again. Racism hits you right in its face. It hits you right in the face. We cannot deny it. We cannot deny it. Now, here's why I'm bringing this all up. I said it before. I think you're better than this. If there's one person that I can convince that my point of view is perhaps worth thinking about, then I made it. If one person could say, you know what, KENOBI, I may not agree with everything you said, but some of your stuff have merit, and I have to rethink this. But after telling you this now, and after giving you data about the comparisons and what's happening to me as a person, as a people, and what's happening to the black race right now. The black race is being decimated. This is genocide that's happening right now. This is ethnic cleansing that's happening right now. And we're animals anyway, so let us lose our souls. Let us get hooked on drugs. Let us stay into the ghetto. Let us come out like animals and not have an education. Let us not be able to even get a trade job because AI is going to take those away from white and black. Let all this stuff happen to us, and let us just be you know what, no good chattel. That is what is happening from this administration, and it's happening to me as a person, as a black man, and as a people. And for the ones that really made it and somehow do have Jimmy neighbors, you're taking away so much and making it so difficult for me that I'll have to move back to the ghetto. You're making things so expensive and so difficult. And you're making it so hard to get decent health care and all of these things that sooner or later, you're going to see a lot of us move out of these middle class areas and go right back home to the ghetto because that's all we can afford. Even after all of the advantages and after all the open doors and the step ups that you gave us, now that you're taking them back, you want that. And I don't hear the outcry. I don't hear an outcry from my white brothers and sisters who love me and I love them. I don't hear outcry from the population of Americans. The population of Americans, I don't hear it. I'm sorry, I don't hear it from you. And I don't hear it from our black people that somehow made it. Where are you? Where were you for Colin Kaepernick when he needed help? This dude got fired. He never got a job again because he was black. And that's the only reason that man never got a job. I didn't hear JC speaking up for him. I don't hear LeBron speaking up for him. I don't hear anybody speaking up for him. He's just out there. Do you see that? There's still an imbalance in our country. There'll always be an imbalance in our country. The only way Jimmy and I are going to get equal is for Jimmy to come down and pull me up and say, Chris, you belong right by my side. That's what I'm trying to get you to see. I want you to come and I want to walk with you. I don't want to walk behind you. I don't want to walk in front of you. I want to walk side by side because I think that's the best for us both. If our country can make us walk side by side, oh, what a country, what a world it would be. Don't be scared. Don't let this rhetoric that this man is pouring into you that makes us all evil and disgusting and people just want to take and take and take. No, I just want to be like you. That's all I ever wanted. That's all I ever did, to try to work hard to show Jimmy that I belong here too, that I want to know him, that I want to be like that. I want to get to know him and him get to know me and my experiences. And I hope you see that. And if you don't, you can't ignore your history. You can't ignore your history. You can wipe it out. You can take the plaques and put them in the basement. You can put up all the Confederate statues that you want. But you cannot erase your history. Because you're still going to have to look at me. You're still going to have to see me. And you're still going to know that it's unfair.